to another video. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that I don't like Cursor. I mean, it's just way overrated for what it does. First of all, it costs $20 for stuff that is so basic, and I don't understand how people can pay for these wrappers. Secondly, it's a fork of VS Code, which means they're just monetizing an open source project, and I really don't like that at all. I mean, how can you pay for something when it's just a price tag over an open source project? Because of all these reasons, and some more, I made the Stop Using Cursor video, where I showed you how to stop using Cursor with easy-to-use open source alternatives that are way better than Cursor, with tons of customization options, and even cheaper, which was pretty cool to see. But one drawback was that it required you to use API keys in CloudDev to generate stuff, which is a bit of a hassle for many people who might just want something fully free that doesn't cost a cent. So, I thought today I'd show you how to stop using Cursor for free without spending a penny. Everything I'm going to show you in this video will be free to use with pretty decent performance. So, let me first tell you the plan of what we'll be using, and then we'll execute the plan. For the editor, I'll be using VS Code because it's what most of us use, and all the extensions we're going to use will also be compatible with it. Apart from that, this time, I'll be using Aider for our main coding agent. I won't be using CloudDev this time. Although CloudDev has added many new features like OpenAI API compatibility and Ollama support, it's still missing one thing that I want, which is support for a model I'd like to use. So, let's talk about the models. There are two things we can do when talking about models. We can either use a model locally, or we can use some kind of free service. Now, if we use a model locally, we won't get good results because we obviously can't host a high-parameter model locally. So, I won't be doing that. But if you want to, you can use a model that suits your machine. Anyway, today I'll be using Google's Gemini models instead because they have a free rate-limited tier for Gemini models, which is pretty good since we can use the Gemini models for relatively free. Especially the rate limits for Gemini Flash are so low that we can easily use it without any issues. You can do 15 requests per minute, generate 1 million tokens per minute, and in total, you can do 1,500 requests, which is really cool. The Pro mode has a much harder rate limit, which makes it less practical. But I have a workaround for that. If you remember, Gemini has launched some experimental models that are actually better than the original and very cool to use. We'll be using these experimental models instead because they are free to use without apparent rate limits. However, since they're experimental, they can sometimes be unreliable or not work. What we can do is configure the experimental models as our main set, and if they go down or don't work, we can switch to Gemini Flash, which works pretty well. I'll primarily be using the Gemini 1.5 Pro experimental model because it scores good numbers in Aider's benchmarks. So, that's the main model we'll be using. Apart from that, we'll also need a VS Code extension for simple refactoring and chatting. For that, I'll be using ContinueDev, which allows us to connect it with Gemini and use it for refactoring and chatting. But there's one issue. We can't do autocompletion with Gemini via ContinueDev because that's not possible and wouldn't make sense either, as it would use up all our requests. So, we can use a small local model for autocompletion like we did in the previous video. But I won't be doing that today because I want to keep this setup free without requiring a high-end computer. For autocompletion, we'll be using Supermaven. Supermaven is really good for autocompletion and is super fast. I like using it because it's reliable, and there's a free tier with unlimited auto-completion, which is awesome. You can also use CodeQwen, but I'll be using Supermaven. Now let's get right into it and configure this setup. First of all, open up your VS Code. Now let's get Supermaven configured. To do that, go to Extensions and search for Supermaven. Get it installed, and once it's installed, you'll see it in your sidebar. Go over there. I'm already signed in here, but you'll have the option to start their free trial for the premium version, or just use it for free. To use it for free, click the Use for Free option, enter the email you want to use, and sign up. Once that's done, you'll see the chat interface. But this chat interface won't work unless you're a premium user, or you can enter your own OpenAI or Anthropic API key to use it. However, this isn't required for auto-completion, which works even without all this. Once you've installed Supermaven and signed in, your auto-completion should start working. The auto-completion is much better than local models and faster, which is cool. So, this will be great for auto-completion. But we also need a chat interface and refactoring tool that works with Gemini. Supermaven doesn't support that, so for this, we'll use ContinueDev. It's open source and works well. So, go to Extensions, search for ContinueDev, and install it. Once it's installed, you'll see it in your sidebar. Just open it, and you'll see the interface. First, let's add our model. Click here, then click Add. Select Gemini, and once selected, you'll need to enter your API key. You can get this by opening Google AI Studio and creating an API key there. Once you've pasted the API key, select Gemini 1.5 Flash. Now, you can start using it with Gemini 1.5 Flash. If you want to use it with the experimental model, click the Settings option and change the model name to Pro Experimental or Flash Experimental, then save it. Now you're ready to use it. You can chat, add your files, discuss your code, generate code, and even refactor it all right within the file. That's pretty cool. Now, the last thing is Aider. Aider doesn't have an official VS Code extension, so we'll use it via the terminal, like usual. Open the terminal, and to install Aider, run the command pip install aider chat, and this will get Aider installed. Once that's done, export your Gemini API key like this. Now you can start using it. To use it, run Aider with Gemini 1.5 Pro Experimental, and you'll see the Aider interface. Just enter what you want to build, and it'll do that. For example, let's ask it to make a Minesweeper game using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let's send that request, and wait a bit. It's done. Let's approve everything here. And it's finished. Let's run it and see. Okay, this works pretty well. I think this is one of the best options to use, and it's all for free. You get free auto-completion, free refactoring, and free code generation. It's fully usable and works great. What more could you want? You can also use it with local or paid models because it's fully customizable. If you need to do something very complex that Gemini can't handle, you can switch to Claude for that task and then come back to Gemini for free usage. The Flash and experimental models work really well, which is cool. Also, if you're thinking of adding something to this setup, I'd recommend using DeepSeek because it's very cheap. And even if you use it, the cost will still be lower than Cursor, which is awesome. So, go ahead and use it. Overall, it's pretty cool. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this video, consider donating to my channel through the Super Thanks option below. Or you can also consider becoming a member by clicking the Join button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye.